Oh, hi, everybody. Not going to believe the lady I'm talking to today. Dr. Kimberly McGeorge. She's out on the lower east side of the continent of North America, well, down in the United States. She's a very, very interesting lady and has a website. And it's, let me look down here, Secret to Everything, secrettoeverything.com. Check out some of her YouTube videos, Secret to Everything. So she has a secret to everything. So as you can imagine, it's going to be a long conversation. I think we almost went 2 hours. So you may have to break this up for a couple of listens. We get into some of the things that she does, some of her modalities, one of which is creating an app which is used for, it's energy mastered and energy remastered. You can actually go to the Apple store and get one. Actually, if you go to her website, Secret to Everything, and look at getting the app through there, if you mentioned there that you heard it on this show, she will give you the $20 app for free. So again, secrettoeverything.com, and look for the Energy Master app. It's the lesser of the two apps. One is thousands of dollars. And unless you're going to do that as a career, you don't really need to do that one. But we talk about things like cryptids and elemental beings and ghosts and how she got into where she is and the things she's seen on her property and where she lives. We also talk about how she can, through her app, actually do a profile on somebody and do some research into the person's background and see things around them, connections and not quite, well, probably attachments if you had one. And if you're influenced by or being influenced by something of a negative or dark energy. And that kind of goes over to the Skinwalker Ranch and the Skinwalker Ranch television show. One of the people who are an actor on that show or is a part of that show, she did a background on that person. And she does it for her YouTube channel. If somebody has somebody in the paranormal community or the woo-woo community or something like that, or they're wondering about their sole cause for wanting to be out in public and doing something like that, she will, if she gets enough people pointing at that one individual saying, hey, who are these people and what is their real motivation for being on TV and or being in the community itself or writing books or doing lectures, what is their background? She does those kind of things too. So we ended up talking about one of the characters on Skinwalker Ranch, which was kind of interesting. And you may find that interesting. She also does me. She does a reading of me, and certain things were really accurate to do with, my parents and my perception of myself. And one of the worst things I can ever try to do, or actually the worst thing, the hardest thing I can do is forgive myself for things that I've done. And, and making mountains out of molehills, I could, cut somebody off in traffic or something and then, think about it for a week on how much of a bad guy I was. And literally it was an accident of not signaling properly or something, but I beat up myself pretty bad. A lot of us do. It's easier for me to forgive you than it is for me to forgive me. And it's just always the way I've been. And she picked that up. And very, very interesting lady. And we're going to have her back a lot because, oh my Lord, she has got her experience, like 25 years of experience as a naturopath, as a doctor, and had and clinical work as a naturopath. And then moving on and developing this app with a tech kind of person. And how this app works. We get into a few of the other things like not only the scanning app, we talk about portals briefly on the Skinwalker Ranch and on other places. She does out of body things, out of body. She does out of body work. She does remote viewing, I guess is the easiest way of putting it. She can do a remote view of your property and help clear ghosts out and does things like that. You can find her at Facebook at Secret to Everything is one of her Facebook pages, as well as Kimberly McGeorge, M.C. George, not M.A.C. George, Kimberly McGeorge on the Facebook. And but her YouTube channel will be kind of interesting, and she's getting ready to do sort of a podcast again, which will be kind of interesting because I really enjoyed talking to her. We ended up, I think, talking for almost 2 hours, which is interesting because we talked for about half an hour beforehand and probably for 45 minutes after, and talked about aliens and reptilians and draconians and Bigfoot. And yeah, she's got experience with all that stuff, and very interesting ladies to pick her brain. Tell you a little bit more about her. Kimberly is an internationally renowned naturopath doctor. She's an energy healer, which is what we're going to get her back on to talk about. Remote viewer, as I said, paranormal expert, and consciousness teacher. She did paranormal work for paranormal groups that would go out in places. And as you guys know, that doing paranormal work for paranormal teams is pretty important. And we talk about why, briefly talk about why, because it's a pretty jam-packed interview. So we talk briefly about why it's important to have a psychic, a good psychic, a real psychic, a true psychic attached to a paranormal team. Kimberly's extensive client list includes some of the world's most talented healers. And for the past 25 years, she's worked on thousands of people around the world. Now, Kimberly was born with this ability to remote view and see people's auras. And she's always been highly intuitive. While still in college, she helped police on many occasions. We don't really get into that, but we will probably stop back on another episode and we'll talk to her about her work with police. And finding she has a natural affinity with herbs. She has worked as an herbalist and went on to create and distribute her own line of herbal organic products internationally. So that's kind of a cool part of her too. Again, not really much what we talk about. We talk about a lot more woo-woo stuff than the herbs, but I can have her back to talk about that. And during this time in her personal practice, she expanded through multiple clinics throughout Columbus, Ohio, where she had been living, but driven by this inner knowing that her healing work could be made much quicker, more affordable, and amplified exponentially using technology. Kimberly consulted with an esteemed neurosurgeon and realized that the healing frequencies in naturopathy could be applied to all areas of her clients' lives. And her latest groundbreaking program, Frequency Master, teaches how to master frequencies in your own life and trains other healers. And that's something we touch on a bit, again, with the Energy Mastered and Energy Remastered, this Frequency Master and this app that she developed. It's something that I think you guys would quite enjoy, along with all the other stuff that she's been involved in. So please, you guys wait here. I'm going to go get Liam. He's going to intro the show, and we're going to get Kimberly on the other side, and I hope you enjoy this. Get ready. It's, like I said, it's about 2 hours-ish, and we'll see how much of this you can digest. Please go to her YouTube channel. Again, it is Secrets to Everything, and her website, secrettoeverything.com, secrettoeverything.com, and see what else she has to offer. Here she comes at the other end of this, and after Liam, Dr. Kimberly McGeorge. Liam?
I see you found our little hiding spot in the universe. Don't get too comfortable. This is a place where you will find those with an experience that's out of this world, or possibly deep within your life. I welcome you to the Oracles with James Tyson. Lean forward and listen. We will pull you into a supernatural journey with guests from around the world, each one experiencing some of the most extraordinary phenomena this wee planet has to offer. Now, here are the Oracles with James Tyson.
Thank you, Liam. Hey, and thanks everybody for tuning in to this episode. We are with Kimberly McGeorge, and she is way over on the east side of North America. And so I'm waving from the west side, the southwest corner of Canada, way down to you on the southeastern almost corner of the United States. How are you today?
I'm wonderful. Thank you so much.
Now, it's really interesting. I went onto your YouTube and I popped around a few things, and one of them actually had you as when you started broadcasting or when you're on the phone or you're doing something, somehow your neighbors kind of start shooting guns in the background and things like that. Do you still live in that place? They seem not to
No,
like
I
you.
moved. No. I moved to the middle of 4 acres on a solid quartz bed. So my neighbors are now trees. So the trees and I get along very well.
Sorry, did you just say you were on a solid quartz bed?
I actually live at the base of a quartz mountain, and then because I live right up against the mountain, the quartz bed keeps kind of going for quite a ways.
Yeah.
So yeah, and so there's a lot of activity that I enjoy on my property.
Yeah. I've always talked to people about, they say, well, how come a gold mine, all those old gold towns are always so haunted? So they're not more haunted than anywhere else, but it's usually sitting on a lot of quartz. And there's a river that runs through it because they needed the water, and the river conducts, makes energy, and then the quartz just solar loads it. So the dead can basically be seen and move stuff in that area more than they can do in the middle of a grass field somewhere. So it's not more haunted, it's just visibly haunted. And living at the base of a quartz mountain, my gosh, you probably glow in the dark. Or your neighbors do.
Exactly. There's a lot that goes on here. Yeah.
Tell me, Kimberly, how did you get into what you do? And we'll get into what you do as you tell me how you got into what you do. But what did you first find that you were a little more open to things on the other side, we'll call it?
Well, I mean, like you, it was who I was. So, I mean, I was automatically connected to the other side when I came in. Automatically saw, well, I didn't know they were called portals, but the ceiling would open up and I would see outer space, or whatever you want to call it, other densities, other dimensions. When I took my nap when I was 4 and 5, I would see spirits, communicate with spirits. They would encourage me to do not nice things to my brother. Usually that was seemed to be their favorite thing to do at the time. I would see auras around people. I had this weird remote viewing trigger. When I heard an ambulance, I would see the crime, which was not fun when you're small, of course. The crime, the accident, the murder, the suicide, whatever. So obviously I grew up with a terror of everything medical because of the ambulance trigger. I know you understand triggers. So all of that, of course I turned it off because when my brother was born, that's when I really realized that I was the odd man out in the family. I was the only one that experienced this total fantasy, weird world that nobody else was experiencing, and definitely nobody else was talking about, of course. And then, I got together with my cousins and my relatives, and I just felt really strange. So it wasn't really until college where I started coming out and using my abilities to make friends and influence people, let's say, and then did some work with the police, a little bit of work with the police, did a little work with exorcism. I have totally different beliefs now about it, but I thought I knew what I was doing back then. And then I got out of the paranormal and got into herbalism, natural health, which is kind of in the grand circle of things, to me, the same thing. Really connected with that. Became interested in healing holistically, myself and others. At the same time, I got back into the paranormal out of necessity. When people say, I have this going on, and they hear about me that I have some sort of psychic abilities, you get asked. So I got into house clearings because there was a need in my community for people that could see energies. And I have 4 children. My oldest daughter, when she was 12, she could see like the ghost whisperer, probably more like you can, way better than I could see the ghosts and entities and energies at the time. And so she would come with me. So we did that kind of concurrently as I developed my natural health business. And so I was just kind of weaving in and out, using my paranormal abilities when I needed to, not necessarily to make money. Until about 10, 12 years ago, I fell in with just a bunch of paranormal groups. And again, like you work with different people, and they would use me. They'd say, we're going here, we're going there. If you don't want to come with us, at least tell us what we're going to run into. So I'd remote view and kind of go ahead and say, I think this is going to be there. Set up your cameras here. I mean, it's very helpful if they don't have that ability, because paranormal investigations are boring if it's just a bunch of people interested in the paranormal stumbling around. So it's always nice to have a psychic or a medium,
I think that's the way to go. If you're going into an old hotel with 50 rooms and 2 of them are haunted, by the time you find those 2, it's a pain in the butt. So have somebody come in and say, oh, ignore all the rooms other than these 2. And it's a lot easier.
Time is limited. So I did that, and I got paid to do that. But that's not really, I didn't really find it again when I'm 53 years old, and I've done that all my life. So that was like more part of me than a hobby. It was just more like everyday stuff. I know that doesn't make sense to a lot of people, but the paranormal is normal to me. I don't even like the word paranormal because really, as we come up, and this in frequency or in density, all of us have the ability as infinite spirit to see these things and do these things. Maybe some of us have more practice this time around, but as consciousness, we all have the ability to connect to other worlds and other places. Maybe we don't know how, maybe we've been blocked, maybe we blocked ourselves. I've turned on and off my abilities. You've said you've turned on and off, or they've been shut on and off. So there's hope for all you guys. You could be more extraordinary at this than we are, for all we know, once you get started. But I really had a passion because my health wasn't good, for helping other people be happier, less depressed, less anxious, less traumatized, and healthier, mind, body, spirit, holistically. So that's what I've really focused. And then I didn't even know there was a thing called consciousness or teaching consciousness, but somehow I became a consciousness teacher just because I get really excited about sharing the things that I know with other people. So that's kind of what I do now. The technology, if you knew me in school, you would have been like, that girl's never going to do anything with technology. But I found out I have a knack. I believe it's very, very old. I think I've worked with frequency technology for millions of years, if not longer. And so naturally, as we rise in frequency, we come back around to the core essence of who we are. And rediscover things we didn't even know about ourselves. So I began working with frequency about 25 years ago, and frequency machines, and now we have frequency apps that we have on our phones and our iPads. And so it's so much better. I used to haul a giant screen around and a giant machine around, so it's really fun to just have my phone and be able to help anyone. I can sit next to someone on an airplane or at a store. And, I was at the dentist office yesterday and I was telling her about my app, and she's like, will you run a scan on me? I'm like, absolutely. So it's just fun, to be able to do that for people.
So I'm going to drill down into it a little bit more. So you have an app that uses technology that actually scans people?
This is it's so funny because, and this is, again, I told you guys my age, but my brother and I used to watch Star Trek growing up, the old Star Trek, the
real
Mr.
Star Trek.
Spock, the real Mr. Spock, old, when he was younger, Star Trek. And they had this thing that looked like an iPad in sick bay, and they would be like, this is what's wrong with you, and we're going to fix you. And it's so crazy because we didn't even know what iPads were back then, but now, I use my iPad and my phone, and I'm like, so it's quantum technology. It's technology. It uses the same technology as, you've heard of the med beds. People talk, the med beds are coming, the med beds are coming. Uses the same well, not exactly the same, but similar technology to what the med beds use. It accesses all space, all time. So there's no limit to the information that it can connect to. So I can scan a place, I can scan a house, I can scan a animal, I can scan a zoo animal. It doesn't have to be a pet, but I can scan pets. I just did a scan for someone. Her mother committed suicide in 2015. I just scanned her mother, and I was able to find out, her mother had actually came back. I mean, this gets into the past life thing, but I come back and she's living in Europe as a little boy. And while I was scanning her, it was cool. And you'll understand this because the mother showed up and started talking to me. So that was like an extra bonus. I didn't, you kind of go in their energy field and they're like, hey, I know you're connecting to me. So then that was cool. I could give her some more information. So again, it's quantum technology and there's no limits. We can tell your programming. We can tell your subconscious beliefs. We can tell you whether you've been abducted, how many times you've been abducted. We can tell you who your soul family is. We can tell you all the woo-woo stuff. And then we can tell you if your hormones are imbalanced or if you have a blood sugar issue or if you need to drink more water or if you need vitamin C. So I love it because it's only limited, by the imagination of the back-end software programming. So because I'm woo-woo, I like to program it really woo-woo. But other people just use it really basic.
So you're the one who programmed it. You're the one who developed the app.
No. Well, I have a business partner. He developed the hardware. He and his ex-wife developed. His name's Ryan, and he developed the hardware with his ex-wife. They divorced, but it's customizable. So there's a basic structure to the app. Let's say there's 12 basic categories. Then there's what's called a library. A library is, as you would imagine, infinitely customizable. So there's people that use this app that are like dentists or doctors or nurses or dietitians or naturopaths or energy healers, and they're going to be using it much like you would expect an alternative practitioner to use it. But because I've been a naturopathic doctor for 25 years, I have that foundation. And then I'm super woo-woo because I was born that way. So I have that foundation. So I tend to use it more for the My Labs, the Secret Space program. Why go in and use it like everybody else is? You can go to someone else that uses it like that. People come to me because, I've written panels that are called Integration of Darkness, and that's all about working on all the shadow stuff that you don't want to look at, you don't want to see. We work a lot with trauma because people test highly traumatized, not just people that know they have PTSD, but everybody's like, why am I so nervous? Why am I so depressed? Why aren't things going right? Why am I so sick? And we're finding really the base of a lot of, mental, physical and emotional and even spiritual things are the nervous system's always on. We're highly traumatized. Why are we highly traumatized? Is it because of what happened when you were 3? Maybe, but more than likely it's what's happening at night that you're getting memory wiped from. You're being taken, your ET experiences that you out of time, out of space, which I actually have some memory of some of those that you don't remember. The My Labs, the SSP, the experimentation that they do on our population. And people just think it happens to other people. It doesn't. We actually are finding through testing thousands of people, everybody's showing signs of having these ET encounters, ET experiences, My Labs, SSP. My Labs is military abduction. I know I'm using these weird terms. SSP is secret space program, but I call it the not secret space program because, it's out there now. But there's just a lot we don't know, but we think we do know. And so we're able to get into the secrets that your government isn't telling you, that your church isn't telling you, that your mom and dad didn't tell you, because it's all in your field. We think our memories are in our mind, but they're not. We carry them just like you see energy. We carry these memories in our energy field. Our spirit radiates the millions and trillions of years that most of you guys have been alive. And we can pull anything as long as I program it right. To ask the right question, and then you give me the answer.
So can you do this? Like if you had a client call you from Bali, could you do that remotely with this app?
Absolutely.
Oh, okay.
And I would ask you this question. Can we have an interview right now remotely?
Yeah.
It works exactly the same. We're accessing each other's, energy visually, audibly, and you can see and I can see energy and feel energy. It works exactly the same. There is no time or space, just like your TV, you turn it on and it's your satellite programming or your radio station. I just tune through your picture, through your voice, and I don't even need that because of who I am, but I just tune into your frequency and I get endless information. Whatever I want to know, all I have to do is create, like if you said, Like if you said something weird, like something I didn't have, you said, I love cars, and I like to work on old cars. And if I wanted to dig into that subject, which I wouldn't because it's not interesting, I would just write a new panel. I'd be like, is he telling the truth? Does he really like old cars? How good is he at working on old cars? How many old cars does he have? Like, I can tell any falsehood, any truth and beyond, because we can get into the subconscious. So a lot of people are split into alters, and they have aspects of their personalities they can't even access, but we can access it because you carry it all with you. Even if you're 100,000 alters from fragmenting, satanic ritual abuse, MK Ultra, whatever, we can access all information. And really, you don't need the technology. In our fullness of spirit, of course, we can just go directly, and you know this because you do it with a lot of things, and connect. We just go and connect. So we don't need the technology, but it's faster, than even if you have the ability, which I do. I can go and get information outside of here. You have to leave the 3D game, go outside and find the information. Of course, the computer's like, and it spits out like volumes where I would have to go individually, you know what I'm saying, and find it or ask, or as you said before, ask, another, my soul family or another being or entity for that information.
Where is this data stored? Like if you're gonna do it on an individual and you got all this information, who hangs on to that? Or is it like opening a book and going through a page? It's already that's there. A great question. I love it. It's a great question with a great and horrible answer. So it's accessible to anyone. Like the government certainly has all that information. Anybody who wants it, there's tons of people that have similar technology, including negative, what I would call more negative agenda races. They have the same access to the information that I have or more. They've had this technology. They've graciously allowed us to probably have the roughest version, available. They have much better technology than we have, but a lot of people don't know that we are starting to get some of the more advanced, they've sold us out. So now they're trickling down to the civilian population, I guess. Do you find that if you've ever been interviewing somebody or doing this with an individual, that you get interference by beings that don't want that information or that person to know specific things about themselves?
That's really interesting. Some of my best interviews, whether I'm just sharing generalized information about the collective or specific information about the person, you know how sometimes on Zoom, since you use Zoom, like it'll glitch and wobble, or you'll hear EVPs or stuff, but it'll be okay when you watch it. Like you might still have the EVPs, but it'll be smoother when you hit the replay. I did a Zoom interview and we expected it froze at like 25 minutes, really hard freeze. And we thought it would be okay. We kept going for another hour and it was a brilliant interview. It might've been my best ever, but when he went to post it, no, it was a hard freeze. Like it was so sad. Like that was just basically for him and I, because it froze at like 20, 25 minutes. It went like total interference. And sometimes we get like on all my phone calls, I'm so used to it, it doesn't bother me. I get, like a room, because you were in law enforcement. So like a military room or a law enforcement room where there's a lot of radio chatter coming, like a dispatch type room. I get a lot of military dispatch chatter on my phone calls, which my children and I find hilarious because like usually we're not talking about anything that would be of interest to the military. So it's an interesting,
would be really old technology, because I worked at a pretty high level in organized crime.
Okay.
Actually, no, I was a policeman investigating organized crime. Mm-hmm. But when we wiretapped somebody, we literally had the phone company go on their computer with the numbers we were wiretapping and like click a box.
Wow, that is old.
It basically on their computer, they click a box and now we have access to all their phone calls on our computer plus their text messages. And there's no click. There's no.
Oh, there's
no way.
don't hear anything. You
No,
wouldn't
because
know.
it's one way. That audio from their phone calls only goes one way out to us. So there's nothing that we broadcast to them.
I see what you're
We
saying,
literally are. The phone company allows us to be part of their line. Like we are
Wow.
just part of the ether connected to the two cell phones or
I
the
gotcha.
wire or hard line or something. Back in the day, I think they used to. You might hear a click if. They
Right, I've
decided
heard
they
that.
record it, but that would be in
I've
the
heard
like the 60s and 50s and stuff. But things have gone. When you wiretap, you go through the phone companies. You don't go to the pole at the end of the street.
I figure they want me to know for whatever reason, keep me aligned, which it doesn't. So yeah, I just ignore it, you know. I mean, that would be the only reason they would let me hear that. And not just me. It's not like, you know, it's in my mind. Like other people are like, who are those people talking? I'm like, just ignore it. Just ignore it.
Just ignore the man behind the curtain.
Ignore the voices in your head. No, I'm kidding.
So your website again is secretofeverything.com.
Secret to everything. Secret to everything.
To everything.
Mm-hmm.
Secret to everything. So if we go to your website, we'll just know everything because that's the secret to everything. And we'll get all the information.
I used to say this. Go ahead.
And you can find a link there to your YouTube channel.
I think so. Maybe not.
So,
but it's secret to everything too.
Secret to everything is YouTube. And how about your Facebook and Twitter? Same thing?
Twitter's Serene Wellness, which is an old natural health business name of mine. And, you know, you just keep it because you have so many followers. Facebook, I mean, of course, I have a personal page, Kimberly McGeorge, but my business page is Secret to Everything.
Okay, cool. So if somebody was interested in your app, actually, can anybody buy that app or get that app or upload it, download it, sideload it?
They can. And I do have an app that I developed. It's a smaller app that we usually offer when I'm on shows like yours. It's $20 in the Apple store and stuff, but we offer it for free if people mention the small app, the $20 app, which is a chakra and aura and color therapy balancing app. We offer that for free if you mention that you heard us on your show. So they're welcome. Your audience is welcome to ask for that. But the big app isn't expensive. It's an investment. I would call it a medical technology app. It's that deep. You can have a free 2-week trial. You're welcome as well to ask us for that. If you'd like, we'd be happy to give you a trial. But a lot of people just kind of throw it away because it's deep. I mean, even the basic, I'm not even talking about all the libraries, you know, I'm talking about the basic stuff is pretty deep and people get frustrated because you got to stick with stuff. You know, it's technology. It has a learning curve to it. But the people that love it, and it's life-changing for them.
Does that app have updates and things come in every so often?
Absolutely. It's updated. We listen to, you know, feedback. We try to adjust and, you know, change it and all of that. So, yeah, we try to stay with you know, as all the coding changes and we don't have very many problems with it, but when we do, we have a lot of, it's kind of you either love it or you don't get it. It's a very unusual app. It's not what people normally think of when they think of, you know, apps. Sorry, my big dog decided to jump off the couch, which I guess was a federal offense to the little dogs.
I interviewed a lady a few years back, and I'll be darned if I can remember her name, but she had a near-death experience and had no engineering background at all. She has a near-death experience. She described herself going down the tunnel, having a conversation, and when she no longer was dead, when she came back to life, she had been downloaded or uploaded an entire schematic for a machine that healed people. And she had investors and they built it. And that would have been 15, 20 years ago.
Wow.
But hers was a healing, like the machine itself was like strictly a healing machine. And she went to engineers and they said, well, how would you know this? Like, how do you know this fits with this? And what have you described? And where did you get this information from? And how does it work? And she just said, blah, 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 this is it. And I died. I got the information and I'd like to make this. And her father passed away. And she took money from the estate and she built this thing.
I love that.
And when I find out her name, I will get a hold of you and tell you, because I think she has a book on it. But this goes back to about 2015, I think.
Okay. I'd like to.
But it was interesting. The interesting part was how she got the information, and her background has got nothing to do with it, which kind of rang true because, how would a layperson who, I don't know where she worked at the time. Again, I can't remember this lady's name.
Right.
And then all of a sudden she was an engineer. Like, the technology she was given was amazing. And she got in, she knew she had to do it. That was the other thing, is that she knew this had to be made. And a lot of times, and you and I know this, a lot of times people will literally be gifted with something from the other side. And maybe at the time they think this is going to be revolutionary for the rest of the world, but it might be given to them to save one person.
That's a good point.
Yeah. So, and because that one person they're going to save is the drop in the pond that's going to ripple out.
Yeah, absolutely.
So she may have been given that machine. We may not hear about it anymore, or it may not be outside of her peer group because it was relevant to somebody within, or a few people within that peer group, and move on. So that's, I've always, I think about stuff like that. Like the reason why does a 1-year-old baby die? Well, probably knew it was going to, before it stepped into that little meat sack, the soul would have known, okay, I'm going to be checking out at a year because these people have to be affected by the death. Not a popular belief, by the way, but I've come around to that same thinking, and I honestly 100% believed what you just said. But I'm a little surprised to hear you say that, because that's not very welcomed by a lot of people when you say that, I know. I worked on a serial killer who killed a whole bunch of people. He was convicted of killing 22, killed more than that. Wow. And as a result of it, the federal government started an inquiry into murdered and missing Indigenous or Aboriginal women in Canada.
That's neat. Wow.
It went right across the country, and as a result of the inquiry, things were found to be screwed up on policing and mental health and support on the Indian, we call them reserves in Canada, you call them reservations.
Sure.
And then following it outside, and I look back at that, well, how many people would have had to pass before the federal government actually flicked the switch? 5 people, 6 people, 7 people, 8 people. Maybe it had to be this much for the greater good to have flipped that switch. And as a result of those souls sacrificing their time and leaving in that horrific method, they basically planted a seed that saved hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands, in the future.
Yeah, I got chills.
Yeah, that's the way I think about death and even just negative things happening to a human being. Again, lessons. These are lessons.
And it's so short. Like, everybody's like, why would somebody volunteer to sign up for a life of pain? Because it's not a life of pain. It's like eternity, people. It's like a blink. It's not even a nanosecond. Like, your life here is not even a nanosecond. Like, there is no death. And I think that's why I like real mediums and people like you that do this work, is because I think we start to dissolve our death programming, which is hideous in certain cultures. There's cultures that handle death better. They build their loved ones homes and they leave them food and water. I mean, they know there's no death, obviously they feel very close to their mom and dad and, children and that have passed. But in this culture, we have this, oh no, somebody died, my life is over. Like, we have just such horrible programming in America, at least, about death. I don't know as much about you guys, but I would assume it's similar.
Similar, yeah.
I'm like, no death, people. There's no death. It's just a switch of avatars, location, whatever you want to say, essence.
I have a tattoo, which is hard to say.
Oh.
It says no end.
I love that. Oh my gosh. You're the only person I talk to that has the same beliefs as I do. That's weird.
Yeah, it's like we're just here for a bit.
I love that.
And it's all about interacting. And as a policeman, I go back in my career. I think I was wearing a uniform for 9 years out of 28. And the rest was like drugs and robbery and gang interdiction and stuff like that. But I can look back in that and I can say, especially when I was in uniform, I had more contact to quote unquote normal people.
Right.
I can look back and say, yeah, it may have felt negative at the time for those people to be arrested for impaired driving, to be tossed in the bucket because they were drunk and they smacked their kids or something. But at the end of the day, I want them to realize it was like a bump. It's like the railings on a little kid's bowling lane. It said bumping back and forth. And I was just part of that. So my interaction with that fellow human being at that time was supposed to be exactly what it was. But as long as I went into it without criticism or ego about the other person.
With no judgment, with neutrality.
Yeah. And I find that looking back, the people I worked with and the ones that gravitated to the units I was in were very higher vibration. We call them empaths, but it's such a word.
Wow, really? That's nice.
That word is used in so many different ways now, but very higher vibration and very connected to helping, and which was interesting. And I have taught classes. I taught a class in Atlanta, Georgia, to the Georgia State Patrol back at one point. Totally different group of people, though. They ex-military, and unfortunately, when they came out of the military, they weren't switched off. They came out of wherever they were.
Really?
Dropped into Georgia, became a policeman. Okay. And it was still us against them.
Oh.
And it was kind of interesting. There was a few higher vibration people, but other ones were, if they were higher vibration, it was so repressed inside of them. It was robotic, and it was really different. And I have met policemen in Canada like that, but not a whole room full. Yeah, one time. So that was kind of weird.
Yeah, that's interesting. I find that a lot with the military.
Yeah, and it's just, again, it is. I hate the word. It's not programming. It's not programming at all. It is training and it's focus, training and focus in one, almost like a modality, one skill set. Or 5 skill sets, maybe. Mm-hmm. And you're 100% wrapped up into that with other people that are 100% wrapped up into it too.
That's a good point too. The small world, kind of, in a way.
Yeah.
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 That reinforces it. Yeah.
It's that peer thing. I remember doing a drug talk in high school. It was about the 9th or 10th grade. And there was a girl sitting at the front on my left. And we were talking about that somehow LSD came up. And she said, well, everybody does LSD. And the rest of the class, about 25 people, all kind of turned on her and says, no, they don't. Only you and your friends do. So everyone, it was very, the point of the class shifted to everyone is strictly based on your peer group.
That's true.
So she thought everybody did because the 3 people she hung out with did. But that wasn't the majority. It was everyone in her life.
Right.
So we talked about, everyone, and it was kind of interesting. But the same thing, like you say, it's like if you're in the military, it's like, well, everybody else is doing it. Well, everybody in this small little cube does that, and you're good. You can go do that when there's a war, but when you leave that and you come in and you want to be a policeman in a town, shut that shit off. Shut that off because it's going to. Right. Yeah, the stat was we were given back in the day was 2% of the population will be bad, will always be bad. We never be good. There's nothing you can do about them. 2% will always be good. We'll never do anything wrong ever, 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 ever. It was the other 96% of the population that we police. Given the opportunity to not wear their seatbelt or drive a little bit too fast or cheat on their income tax or take that chocolate bar, those are the people we bump into all the time. So are they bad? No.
Right.
They just do. All you're there is like to be that bumper. That's it. And don't get upset when people do stuff. I'm talking way too much. So let's get back to your stuff. Yeah, it's interesting how our interaction with others, that ripple effect goes out. And it's the positive interaction that can go out, even the negative interaction or the negative action, the death is important for the people to learn as it goes out. What lesson were they having to learn at that time? Which is fascinating. So back to your app, the Apple Store. What's it called?
My first app, my little app, is called Energy Mastered. And then my second app is called Energy Remastered.
And then Remastered. Energy Mastered and Energy Remastered. Yeah, I don't think I'd buy the $1 million one. I might start with the $20
$1 million one. It's not quite $1 million.
Not quite.
But well, people aren't used to apps being like huge amounts of money, and it is. But again, it's a medical level app. You know,
yeah, it'd be better if you had a business. It would be better.
Yeah, it's for people that are either really have an understanding or want to have an understanding of natural health and frequency. And there is a buy-in to me. You're not going to use something that you don't believe is true. So a lot of people have trouble thinking that I can hold my phone and say what I could say in a minute if you let me about you. They'll be like, how? They don't disconnect. You know what I'm saying? So they're not going to, it would be a waste for them to buy into something that they don't buy into. Obviously, they don't allow for it in their belief system. People say, what is the number one suggestion you can tell me how to turn on my psychic abilities? I'm like, well, let's back up. Allowance. Allow the fact that there might be Sasquatch living in the woods. Allow the fact there might be a category of creatures called fae and pixies running around your house. Like, be an allowance, expand your world. That's the first step, you know?
My youngest daughter's fae. Not her name.
A girl that's fae. I absolutely believe you.
Yeah.
I've got, and I see it in clients too. And it comes up on the app that, there's that bloodline or connection too.
My oldest daughter's an empath. We moved from one house into this one. And luckily we moved because we had some elementals that were really pissy. And I walk around open. So they were going to come in and wreak havoc with me because of what humans were doing in the area with some underground creeks and stuff. Anyway,
I see what you're saying. Okay.
But my youngest daughter was still there with her mother. And my oldest daughter and I had moved to the new place. And and my psychic buddy she said, oh my God, you've been shut completely off. And I said, yeah, I haven't really seen anything. She goes, yeah, you've been completely shut off. In fact, your guides have taken a step back and there's this huge elemental being protecting you right now because these other ones are going to come out and get you. And I said, well, what about my daughter? My daughter's still there. Right. And they laughed and said, two of them, they laughed and said, yeah, they're not going to go near her. She's fae. she's fairy realm. She'll kick his ass. So they were fine.
I love it.
So it was kind of funny. But me, I was shut down for like 3 months. Yeah. No, sorry, a month until I moved. I had been shut down for 3 months once before for questioning myself, doing readings. I do a reading and then phone up a psychic friend. Hey, how did I do? Oh, you did fine. Okay. And then do another reading and phone her up. So how did I do? You did fine. And then all of a sudden I couldn't read anymore. And I said, so what's going on? And she said, yeah, you're in a timeout. That was 10 months I was in a timeout because I couldn't get my confidence back. As soon as I got confident enough to do readings again, then I was actually upgraded to this weird other way.
Cool. That's cool, though. I think that's really cool.
But it was, as soon as I started questioning myself, my guides went, all right, he can go back to where he was. He's like, he can't read. Like, why?
You're interesting. You're super high level. You're very unusual. You're very, very, very connected. And I don't meet very many people like you. I meet high level professionals in their field, but then there's a level above that you're very connected. It's very unusual.
We've gone through, like, I sent you an email kind of giving a kind of a heads up with stuff I wanted to talk about. But in that email, I also gave you my consent to do the reading on stuff because I think that helps with you opening. So if you want to do a scan, that's fine.
Yeah. Do you want me to go over a few things, just random? I'm just going to pick random.
Sure.
Things that might be interesting to you or your audience. Well, and I want you guys to understand, so it's not me. So I can force a scan. I have 1,000 or more categories. I can pick what categories I go into and look at. But usually what I do, because I'm used to working with clients, it's more beneficial to the client, unless they want me to look at something specific, to address what they want to address. You know what you need to address. You know the quickest. You know what you want to talk about. So this is not me. I just want you guys to understand, the audience. This is you telling me what you wanted to talk about, if that makes sense. Knowing that, we're going to start. Okay, so the first thing, you have a lot of sensitivities, like, sensitive people tend to be sensitive physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. That's part of being, higher frequency and tuned in. But you have a lot of, I don't want to say necessarily allergies, but like allergies, food sensitivities, things that kind of come in and can irritate you, make you tired, lay you low. And so your body was the first thing that wanted to talk to me and just say, be aware of these things. You have some gut issues. So just a basic, like gut bacteria would be highly beneficial. It also helps with food sensitivities and environmental sensitivities. You probably know this, but local honey is awesome for people with seasonal allergies because you desensitize your system to the specific things that, like pollen and stuff, that irritates you and the certain molds that are in your area. Also, as far as you're super high strung and you tend toward the OC, obsessive compulsive or anxious side of a spectrum. And so you fry out your adrenal glands a lot. You're a very intense person. You're a weird perfectionist, not a straight perfectionist, but a kind of divergent perfectionist. Yep. So I don't know if you're taking any supplements, but you need to be on a good methylated B complex because you're intense. Like, I am. You just hit it. It doesn't matter what. I mean, you can go to the grocery store, you'd probably shop intensely. You're just an intense person. So your adrenal glands take a beating. Then the second thing, I'm going to skip categories now. Second thing your spirit wanted me to talk about is I did a class way back about the shadow self, and it is talking about some of the darker aspects or lower frequency things in our lives. So you are right now, at least, and part of it is, we're on technology right now, and we all are. Everybody's testing like this these days, very influenced by artificial intelligence. Of course, we all are, but so are you. So your spirit wanted me to address that. You're also in what we call, and this is a psychological term, which I know you know, survival programming. So you have a hypervigilance aspect to you. And I don't know if it's from trauma. I don't know if it's from night. I don't know if it's from law enforcement. I don't know if it's you're so sensitive and connected, but you're one of these people, you're like a hawk and an owl combined. You have situational awareness to the extreme. You not only know what's going around you, you know what's going on a mile north, south, and east, west of you at all times. You walk in go ahead.
I'll give you an example of that, and I've always had it ever since I was a kid. I could go to a nightclub,
that's interesting,
stand on the second level and look at everybody dancing, And it was like just moving like water. And then I could see that this person here was going to fight this person here. And to me, they were like two poles coming out of a stream, completely different energies. And I remember going to a movie theater downtown in the theater district in Vancouver back in the day where we'd all be lined up outside.
Sure.
And I was with a friend and I was looking across the street and I said, watch what's happening. And there was a crowd just kind of on the street moving back and forth. I said, something's going to happen, because out of that movement of humanity, 5 or 6 of them were completely different energy. And it was all undercover police about to go in and do a raid on this place.
Okay.
But they completely were, other than they looked like everybody else, to me, they glowed in the dark. They were completely a different group. So as a policeman, it was kind of funny. I could pull up to outside of a bar at closing time where there might have been a fight or somebody was being a jerk. And if nobody told me who it was, I could just go look in the crowd and go, you, because I could see it. It was just, they completely look different. It's like a shoplifter. I could probably pick a shoplifter out because their vibration is not the same as everybody else's going through their day. And I could see that.
That's not your law enforcement. That's who you are.
That's just who I am. Yeah.
Yeah. That's an ingrained part of you.
But it just helped at work. So
you do dance with what I would, and I know some of these phrases, people aren't going to know what I mean because everybody has their own definition, but you do and have danced with dark forces. So I believe you have had encounters, communication with darker entities or energies that we would not consider human. There's definitely something there. It's not like the core of your existence, but it's something you've done and you will continue, I believe, to do. You know, one thing that is nice that I see, it's a positive thing. So some of us refuse to own our own crap. We're in a lot of resistance to doing our shadow work, and we're in a lot of denial about things that are holding us down and holding us back from our full power. You actually look to me like you actively are interested in pretty brutally now and then stopping and looking at yourself and checking yourself. So you do that, which I don't see a lot, and that's pretty impressive. There are still and I know you know this, and I could randomly pick out anyone, and this would be true about them. I wouldn't even have to use the app. But there is still a lot of unprocessed emotion. I'm going to encourage you as a challenge for me, to you personally, you need more radical self-forgiveness, radical self-nurture. You are a very loving, nurturing, care for others person, but you are to me, it looks like you're too brutal with yourself. You let everybody else off the hook and are all about second chances, third chances, forgiveness with everybody else. But you like rip yourself a new one like a million times and then like never stop. Like you just hold yourself at such a high standard.
Because I actually was gifted a meditation a few years ago. I would kind of do some breathing, meditate before I fell asleep. And all of a sudden I got this downloaded, like I should do this. And I went back as far as I could in my life. I always recommend this to people. As far back in my life as I can remember being bullied or hurt, and remembering the name of the person who did it or just the incident. Yep. And all I had to do is say 3 words, I forgive you. Then move to the next one, the next one, the next one, the next one, all the way up to the guy who cut me off in traffic that day. And I did that every night before I fell asleep. After my breathing, like you do in any meditation, and sometimes you'd leave one out and sometimes you'd add another one. And the trick is you do not dwell on the incident. You do not hesitate and dwell on the incident. It's an incident. And I describe it as you being the guy who sticks the sticker on the Chiquita bananas going down the conveyor belt. Boom, next, boom, next, boom, next. And I went 7 nights. On my 7th night, I went all the way back to the first one again. And I said, I don't care. And I swear I was like 2 inches taller. And it was like, oh, that's kind of cool. And the next day, and then the byproduct of that, forgiveness, is I could not get angry. I could not lose my temper. So it was
Wow.
like the things that had hurt me in my youth or being cut off into traffic the day before. I'm just
Right.
like totally
Right.
chilling out my whole left side here. It was
Right.
like that anger I got from that incident, I put in a quiver and I would take that out to use it against somebody else if I was lost my temper.
Yeah, I love that explanation.
My quiver was empty.
I
So
love that. That's
literally my kid could have thrown a rock through the front room window and I just go, yeah,
what it
whatever.
is. Because
But
there's not that trigger. I always say you cannot be, react, have, create, use any word you want, anything more or less than what you are being. So you got rid of all that. So you weren't triggered when that's what I say, when there's no resonance, you wouldn't be angry. People always say, it has nothing to do with me. I was just working with my daughter with this yesterday. She's like, this girl at work just irritates the crap out of me. I can't stand her. I'm like, whoa, 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 let's back up. I'm like, you know why? And of course, I'm looking at the energies and the frequencies. And I'm like, because she reminds you of you. So let's stop projecting, because we do that, project outward, and let's deal with this. And then you won't have that resonance and that, anger, resistance, judgment, whatever. That's brilliant. Yeah, we got to get this stuff out of our fields and let it permanently go, for sure. I love that. That was great.
that meditation has to be repeated every year or so, or 6 months, or depending what your life is like. But I
That's a
cannot
great
forgive
suggestion.
myself. I cannot forgive myself.
Yeah.
That's the hard one.
Yeah.
And that's what you're talking about, because I just, it resonated with me like, oh yeah, I'm the hardest person on myself.
Yeah,
Constantly.
you can do that and let it go, and it really goes. It does. But and that's my personal challenge to you, is take that same radical grace and forgiveness that you've given so many others and pour that upon yourself.
Oh yeah, I'm very, very critical about myself. Both on, again, it's that woulda, coulda, shoulda. I should have done this when I was younger. Why didn't I do this? I should have turned left instead of right. I should have, but it's all behind me. I can't fix what's behind me. I'm moving forward, but I'm still, and I've seen this in people, and in doing readings, I've mentioned it to them. I'll look at them and I say, you've got to let stuff go. You're pulling a wagon full of crap.
Yeah.
If you can let that wagon go, you can move forward. I still have a wagon. So, do as I say, not as I do.
Yeah, but we tend to teach what we need to learn or share what we need to learn. So that also kind of makes sense that you encounter, people to help remind you of, we all have stuff we need to work on, for sure. One of the things I see in your family that I think your family brought to you, and again, these are the subconscious layers that you may or may not be conscious of. You may be, but if I was running it on the audience, both your mom and dad seem to have a fear of money, a literal fear frequency of, let's say, wealth or excessive wealth. And that can come from, just to share with the audience, that can come from a lot of places. It can come from going through the depression. It can come from the church telling us, rich man goes to hell. Or, it can come from a million places. But this is what I don't like, is that their frequencies, your mom's fear of money, your dad's fear of money, is in your field right now. And it's very high. It's screaming. So my guess would be, I'm usually not wrong, but I could be wrong, that you hit what we call ceilings of success, and it's hard to drive past them. So I'm not saying you've never been well off, or you've never had a nice bank account, or you've never had whatever, but it's like it drives up, and this frequency of fear, it's like, okay, that's enough. It's like a hard stop. That's enough. No more promotion. No more, literally, there's another panel I can look at. I have it on a different program on a different device, but we call them money caps, and people will read, I don't want to make over 100,000. You wouldn't think that, or I don't want to make over 500,000, or I have $1 million money cap, and everybody's like, no, their conscious mind, that's not true. But we find when we remove these money stops and clear that programming, people are like, wow, it's like you turned on a faucet, So it's really important to look at not just our own beliefs, but what have we inherited by growing up being bathed in, other people's beliefs.
My father was absolutely terrible with money.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay.
Absolutely terrible. He was constantly in debt. He would overextend himself, but give you the facade that everything was all good. It was almost like an ego thing.
But that's interesting. If he really had this fear of money, and that's your subconscious driver, which is actually your primary driver. We think our conscious, this, we think our conscious minds, that's not our primary drivers. But if that was his driver, it makes sense to me that he would be in debt. He's never going to have too much money perpetuating that cycle, right? How about your mom? What was her, what in your opinion was?
Oh no, she was a good Scottish, like, don't give my sister any money for whatever. She was
typical. Okay, so that's a cultural.
Yeah, she was a small town girl who basically every dollar was important, and she. So
a different type of fear of money, maybe a different expression of that in her, but they came together and they gave you that kind of a negative inheritance. Now, here's the good thing about tech.
I can actually take down an entire company. All I have to do is buy stock in it. I can buy stock at $50 in a company, and it'll be worth $1 the next day. It's like, how did that happen? James bought stock in it, so obviously it crashed. It's like, that's the joke around my friends. They said, we're thinking of buying stock in this, but don't tell James, because if he buys it, the company's going to go bankrupt. Like I'm a magnet for companies that are going out of business. And I go, I think that's a good investment. No, it wasn't.
And it's funny because there's this part of the app, the technology I haven't told you about. So there's the diagnostic part, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong. But there's the healing part, which is so beautiful, because one of the things that we can make frequency tracks, and it works really well, pulling the programming. If it's not too deep, if you haven't taken it on, whatever it might be, too deeply in you, it just literally, it's like homeopathic frequency medicine. It pulls it out of your field. So, and then we're able to go in and check it and say, okay, are these programs still running in or do we have to do something else? So it's super, super interesting. I mean, you come up having, I already said this a million times in a million different ways in this interview. You have a super big spiritual connection, so that's good. And important, of course, to be connected to the all possibility. So you do have that. That works. One of the things, it says your personal spaces need to be cleared. So a lot of times we don't see, because you're a weird person. You're in so many places, like in your energy and your mind and your vision at once, that you don't see the details. So I would encourage you, almost like it's people like us, because I'm like that too. Sometimes we kind of need to like wake ourselves up or like throw cold water on ourselves and say, okay, is my living room cluttered? Is there something old? Do I need to get rid of things? Is something not necessarily haunted? We're talking about low frequency, and you are so good at this, but I think your money flow would improve if you would bring yourself down small and look at each room and your spaces and raise the frequency. Either bring in higher vibrational items, crystals, whatever, yada, yada, whatever appeals to you. It can be beautiful paintings, whatever, sacred geometry, or get rid of stuff and junk. You're such a mushy person inside. You're a very sentimental person. You hold on to things maybe longer than you should. You have attachments. You're just a very sentimental person, and that does transfer over into your stuff. So I just encourage you, if you want to increase your money flow, and this is general advice to the audience, I don't have to run you through the app, clear your space.
Yeah, I could save $180 a month by getting rid of all the stuff I have in a container out back that I moved from the other house that I have no idea what to do with. Like doors, I've got doors with really cool windows in them. They're from the late 1800s, early 1900s.
Oh, I like that. I get that.
And the house that I'm in right now isn't, it's not fitting me, if that makes any sense. I don't feel comfortable here. I've got a friend of mine coming in to paint it next or later this week.
Oh, good. Well, you're already kind of intuitively.
Yeah, and I've got to build a basement suite downstairs, so I have a tenant that lives down there, but there's no suite per se. But I don't like the space itself. I'd rather live somewhere else, but It is what it is. I own it.
Right.
You know,
that's good.
It's one of those weird Canadian, West Coast Canadian things. The house that my ex and I bought for $220,000, we sold it a couple of years ago. That's when we moved for 2.3 million.
What?
And if I lived further east, you could buy an estate, 2 estates for that. But literally, seriously, what we did is we bought a duplex for like 1.7, and my kids and my ex live on one side, and I live on the other side, and the dog goes back and forth between them. It's just kind of fun. But because we all get along, it's just that we just needed our own space.
That's great.
But I don't like the location. It was one of those things. We have to live here because the kids are going to work here or to school here, and it seemed local, and it was a town they grew up in, but it was the only duplex available at the time, and it's not really.
You're so sensitive, though, that makes me a little sad for you. You and I need as pristine, as energetically compatible, as harmonic. We need, the sacred spaces to just kind of chill, because we're not chill people. So we kind of need that safe, you know what I'm saying? We need
near some moving water in the forest.
Yeah, exactly. That's what
hustle and bustle.
You and I not that there's perfect places, but in a harmonic space that really resonates with who we are. So I hope you find that sometime soon.
It'll relatively soon.
I think you will too. So I mean, I can talk about you in the next.
I'm going to switch gears here, but I appreciate what you opened the app on me. You apped my butt. But one of the things I wanted to talk to you.
One of my practitioners that I train on the app, she says you've been appified.
Appified.
You've been appified.
It's like a superhero thing. You've been appified. Exactly. Oh no, that's Mr. T. That was more Mr. T. You've been appified. I love that voice.
That was a great voice. That's a great voice. Whatever.
One of the things I found fascinating was on your YouTube again. Secret to Everything. On YouTube, you did one of these things where you did like an investigation. I don't know if was that from the app. We're going Skinwalker Ranch.
Pictures and
Okay, so the Skinwalker Ranch is fascinating for a number of reasons. I've been following the story there for a number of years. A friend of mine kind of was hooking me up with somebody who actually was at the Blind Frog Ranch, which is down the road, and they're just as busy down there. But the apocalypse happened, and I'm not allowed. I was going to be traveling through there on my motorcycle to South Dakota, and was invited to stop in at the Blind Frog, and the border shut down, and I couldn't do it. So, but the Skinwalker Ranch, I noticed you did a little blurb on it, and you, through I guess remote viewing too, found a number of different types of entities there. Now I know. Who was I talking to? I can't remember. I was at Alien Con or something in LA, and they were talking about the Skinwalker Ranch, and somebody had seen literally a kind of a cone of light or a tube of light come down, and a Bigfoot crawled out of it, hit the ground on all fours, dusted himself off, looked around, and walked away. And that was of interest to me because years ago I had an opportunity to talk to an ET through a psychic, and there were the Bigfoot, there was like the critter, the animal itself, and then something called an echo, EKKO, which is an ET that protects them. And it looks like a Bigfoot, and it's the one that kind of stands behind the tree waving. And you look, look, a Bigfoot, let's go over there. And meanwhile, the real family is sneaking around the corner. So this one's like doing the hide and seek thing, and then when you go around the tree, it's not there. But it gave it the family of real Bigfooters, the critter, time to bail. Right. And it was like doing this to the humans. So it's keeping them away from us. So that would make sense. That thing came down. It was like the echo. But you found other things out there too. What were the other entities that you found?
I don't remember because I should have watched my video before, but
I'll give you some hints. Reptilians. Pixies, Fae, Draco.
What wasn't there? I think it would be easier to talk about. I knew the Draco. I remember the Draco. There's so much there. And normally I would say that's true of every location, but it's not. That's not a true statement. As you were kind of pointing out before at the beginning of the conversation we're having, it's not true. There is something there. And it's so funny because you and I talked about this, I think, off air, but I believe it's also underground is the main secret. Whatever secret that needs to explain most, not all, most of everything that's happened for years and years and years, I believe you will find underground. But all the stuff going on underground, which I think, again, is a little bit multi-layered, is contributing to the resonance or attractiveness. I can see, you probably have seen, there's portals that open and close there all the time. Like, I'm not talking sky, I'm talking about tons of realms and dimensions, and there's time travel going on, and there's a bunch of stuff going on there. So there's something that's making that just a paranormal ET hotbed. I mean, multiple things, but I think most of it is happening. I do think the minerals and the crystals in the mountain range contribute lightly. I know they pointed that out, I think, on the show, but I believe, and I think also, do you think, I want to know what you think. I believe there's people that actually know what's going on or suspect strongly what's going on.
I think the government, there's people within the government.
That's what I was trying to say. Yeah, that's what I was trying to say.
And I think it's because it's still being monitored. It's kind of funny that when the previous owner sold it to the guy who has it now, it would have been probably, I guess maybe it would have raised way too many alarm bells if the government actually bought the land.
Directly.
Like, what's her name's ranch up? There's a ranch in Sedona, and darn it, I can't remember the name.
I know there is one there.
Yeah, the government bought that.
Yeah, there is one.
Yeah, I was talking to Tom Dongo, and he wrote a book along with a lady who used to own the ranch. Again, I can't remember the name of it. But it was bought by the government and is kind of restricted. You're not.
That's a shame because they used to, at that ranch you're talking about, they used to let the public tour it. I would have loved to have got to know that. Oh, I missed that, Yeah,
it's crazy. But I think a Skinwalker Ranch, the government should have bought that too. But I guess that would have raised a lot of like, oh, really? The government's buying it? So maybe it is true that there's some secret base, blah, blah, blah. But what was interesting about it, you mentioned Draco, you mentioned reptilians, you mentioned all these things that you saw there. And then you did a profile up on one of the fellows from the TV series, a guy who does the security called Dragon. And you did a YouTube thing on that. And I found it really fascinating that, Dragon's not his real name, and we get into all these things, and he's really, and I was looking at it going, one of the things you said was, and where's my fancy notes here? He had, I don't know if full on attachments, but he had some dark force energies.
Oh yeah.
Around him. And
he's influenced for sure. He's being puppeted. I would say you've seen this, I know too, in people, but I don't think he's. I don't know.
I don't know if he's overly conscious of it.
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah,
I think it's his trauma. I think it's his own. I don't mean darkness like he worships Satan. That's not what I'm saying when I say darkness. I mean what we were talking about. His own unresolved angst, I think, really resonates with some of these darker frequency beings, and they kind of target him. And also, you mentioned this, and I don't remember if I did on the video, but he's also sensitive and has abilities. So that is kind of a bad combination.
And it's actually blocked off. His crown basically is shut down.
Yes. And I think that probably deliberately would be my guess. I think he probably did that a long time ago, or way before the show, or he got involved with that. But yeah, he's a real interesting.
He's an interesting guy, and he picked the name Dragon for himself. And I'm wondering if one of the darker energies is a Draco. who is basically, because he's really,
yeah.
he's really against digging. Like it really
that's what we need to do. You and I need to go out there.
Oh, you want to dig? No, I think we can't do that. It's like, dude, like I told you once before, I think we're off air. I said I'd have an open pit mine there tomorrow. We'd be down a couple of 100 feet with bulldozers going around in circles.
Take the whole thing out. Let's dig it out. Let's go.
Find it. But oh no, because there's radio waves and all this other stuff going on, and you know, they'll start working on one side of the ranch, and then they'll see a UFO on the other side, or something will happen, and they'll like over there. Well, it's like magic. It's like, you know, don't look behind the curtain kind of thing. Look over here. No, look over here. It's just distraction and redirection. And it's interesting. It's an interesting television show, and it's a television show. It's like Ghost Adventures. It's like, good Lord, how many times? How long have they been on? 13 something years. They haven't got a picture of a ghost yet. We can go and get pictures of ghosts every weekend. Why can't they get a picture of a ghost? Well,
I mean, I'll say the same offer to Ghost Adventures I said to Skinwalker Ranch show. Bring me on, bring you on. We'll close this show up real quick, right?
I've got friends. I got friends at the Ghost Adventures actually went on their properties in Washington State, California, Tombstone, Arizona, and it's like they'll never invite them back. Because what they showed on TV was it was all made up. I think David Oman, who has the Oman House, a couple, 200 feet from where the Tate Bianca murders were back in the day with Charles Manson's family. His place is haunted, and it's very haunted. I shouldn't say scary haunted. It's haunted, but it's not scary. It doesn't have bad things in it. A lot of interesting energy. And, the Ghost Adventures comes and they do the lockdown overnight for about 2.5 hours. Then they're gone. It's like
overnight, 2.5 hours.
Yeah, it's not overnight. It's not more than a couple hours. And of course, there was a psychic who had seen a American Indian who had literally, he and his horse died. They fell down a muddy hill a couple of 100 years ago. And that energy, that guy's downstairs. And of course, the lead actor in Ghost Adventures is saying,
"The lead actor, I love it.
This is what you get for building a home on an Indian graveyard." Well, dude, it's not on an Indian graveyard. It was this one guy fell off a horse and died. Yes, he's also hangs out in the kitchen with, is a silent film era actor who owned the property across the valley.
Cool.
And he would show up there. He's like, it's like, you're full of crap. And with at least with David Oman, who's eccentric to start with, he's fun. But you could actually go on a paranormal tour of his house, and he cooks barbecue for you.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, he's got a local paranormal team that'll do the tour, and you get to talk to things. I was there, and we talked about the main actor on Ghost Adventures, and every time we mentioned his name, one of these things that are by his fish tank would a little Beetlejuice boy kind of figurines. One would fly off the thing every time we mentioned that guy's name, and he just laughed and said, "Yeah, they don't really like him." It's like, because he was just being a jackass when he was there. But that's television. That's the good thing I find about those shows. It has opened up people's mind to something being on the other side. And from there, people have looked into it, and they've got, something could be on the other side. And people,
it's helped my business. Yeah.
Oh yeah, it would. And it also helps Granny, who's not allowed to talk about seeing Bigfoot picking fruit in the backyard when she was a kid. She can now go to a Bigfoot conference and sit around with a whole bunch of other people, and she can talk to them about it, but she's not allowed to talk to the family because, crazy Granny. But people are now coming out with stories that would have locked them up 50, 60 years ago.
That's what all those shows, Ghost Hunters, I think all those shows being popular and coming out, making it cool, did open up people to the other dimensions and densities. And I'm thankful for that. I am. That's a good point.
So would you go live on Skinwalker Ranch?
There's a lot. I mean, there's a lot here where I live. There's a lot more malevolence. I think you can feel that too. There is some malevolence there. There's some here, but it's manageable, if you know what I mean. We have agreements. I'm going to leave you alone. You're going to leave me alone. We're going to do our thing. We're not going to clash. I'm not going to drive you out. You're not going to come after me. You understand, you make those agreements when you live on a land. But out there, if they would let me have, let's say, title or ownership, if I really could have some authority, I would have no problem. I would love it. I would, you know what I don't like though? I'm such an animal lover. I would be afraid of my wrath if they touched a horse or dog or cat or rabbit under my watch. That's the most disturbing thing to me about out there is the animal hunting of the beings, that is disturbing to me. That's
with cattle mutilation, I had this other theory on where, are you familiar with cattle? Like herds of cattle? There's a thing called shipping disease.
Yes, I've heard of that.
Where like if you stress the animal, it will actually die.
Yes.
And back when I worked up north, somebody's calf died. And I had to go up to make sure, because it had been shot. Some Yahoo went by and shot it. So if they shoot it, the government will pay you for your animal. But if it dies of shipping disease, they won't. So we used to have to cut the head off, take it to the vet, and they could have to determine whether it was shot before it died or after it died.
I see. Okay.
So I learned a little bit about this disease, but it's not all the cattle. It's like one or two, maybe, under a lot of stress. They call it shipping disease because shipping them, moving them causes stress.
Yeah.
So that's in my head. And I'm thinking, okay, middle of nowhere, flying saucer, doing its thing. And all the cows are like, the hell is that? And they book it across the field. And there's this one cow's going, what? Boom, dead. So and it goes, holy cow. Pardon the pun. One of them's dead. How did that happen? So they go down and they basically start trying to doing an autopsy on a cow to see why that one cow out of all the other ones died. Because over time they've noticed every so often they'll fly over a bunch of cows, one or two of them will die. Let's go do an autopsy on it. So is it mutilation? Or is it just like, wow, we flew over top of it and it died? Yeah. Like if I was walking over top of a bunch of animals I have never seen before, and all of them took off and one of them looked at me and stroked out, I'd think, I wonder why that happened. We should take it to biology class and cut it up and see what happened. So that's where my mind moves to cattle mutilations. I don't think it's okay, we're going to go and cut up a cow for no apparent reason.
You know what I always thought? I mean, we all know these ET races, there's not just like one guy, one gray, one Draco, one reptilian, one whatever Palladium, one whoever's doing it. There's not just one of them. So why do they just do one cow? If they're really consuming, you know what I mean? People say they consume the, the surgeon parts for whatever is one of the theories.
Yeah.
How's that going to feed because I know and I can see that there's one cow from here and one cow from the next state and two cows from, it's not going to cut it that doesn't fit the theory. Why would it? Okay.
There's no reason for it.
And you have a herd of 100 cows or 50 cows or 20 cows, just do it all there. If you're going to come down, expose yourself, have to memory wipe people, traumatize people, just burn it. Just harvest the cows. You know what I'm saying? Get 100 eyes instead of 2 eyes. I mean, it doesn't make sense.
Well, it's like talking to...
But it doesn't make sense if they're eating and using them for, the sexual organs for whatever. It doesn't make sense.
Yeah, unless you were, sacrificing the cow for
religious purposes,
ritual thing. But, dude, really? If you're gonna, I don't know. I talked to Travis Walton, who was an abductee back in the 70s in Snowflake, Arizona.
Sure.
Talking to him, his belief is he wasn't abducted for any other reasons other than, oh crap, as a result of us, you're screwed up your shoulder really bad. So we're going to repair that before we let you go. And that's the only reason they took him. Is they put him somewhere, and that's what he was told on the craft. They said, look, you're in a lot of pain. We'll fix you. And then they dropped him off again, and off he went. So it wasn't like an abduction.
Yeah, well, I just wrote a 4 set of panels called ET Contact, and we're finding the same thing, and I've experienced in my life. You're not always taken for kind of like the cow thing you're saying. It's not always sinister. There's people that are healed that know they were taken, or they wake up and they had a cancer in their hip, and they wake up the next morning and something's a little funny. Maybe they wake up upside down in bed and their cancer's gone. It's not all evil, nasty, sexual, rape, torture, probe stories. There's as many good stories, but that's not what you're going to be. The paid media and the paid junk consciousness and the paid new age doesn't want you to understand that there's many amazing races that you can work with for healing, because we could kick this place into 4D if we'd actually work with some of these and knew that they existed, and we weren't all scared of something that didn't look like us. That's what I think anyway, and what I know. You
mentioned 4D, but we're skipping 4D. Aren't we going into 5D?
That's a lie.
Really?
If you can't effing see, this is what I say. This is my favorite personal phrase that I say. I say, if all y'all can't all effing see 4D, how the effing F are you going to end up in 5D? You don't skip. If you're down here in the density, and most people are, come on, let's be honest, and they're starting to shake up to 3.5, they're not going to skip up to 5D. And unfortunately, there's polarity and density. We've also been lied to about that. The beings that I talk to, and I don't know about you, that are in 5D, they're like, I hate, they're like, it's kind of like religion. We're like, when we get to heaven, everything will be wonderful and we'll be healed and happy. So we think when we get to 5D or 70 or 90, everything will be magical and happy. No, honey. There's still Dracos that come after you in 5D and 4D and 70 and 90. There's still polarity. There's still black and white, even in 5D, but we're lied to about all that. Not as much, but it's an evolution. We're growing, we're learning. You talked about that. It's not perfection.
Well, the 3D was more about the individual, like me, correct?
You're not 3D though.
No. I mean, 3D was all about me and my property, and I'm putting a fence around it, and you can't come on it.
And what you can see and what you can touch, and definitely very lower physical, mechanical, but it's the game. If you're in 4D, you can be actually, that's what they're working on right now, I believe. I think they're kicking us into the 4D version of this game, which I'll take. I'll take any improvement in here that I can get, even if it's not 70, 90, whatever. I'll take a 4D world compared to a 3D world. But it's kind of like video game versions, they upgrade them.
The 4D, is that more about, like, I always thought 5D was more about the collective, the we. Is that what you got?
It takes like 150,000, whatever, before you go. Because all the dimensions are broken out of the all. So the all is the all, no dimensions. And then everything outside of that, even like a 9,000 level D is still not like the all, all possibility, no individuality. 3D is just, and of course there's 1D and 2D too. 3D is just very physical. And as we get into the upper dimensions, like the Sasquatch, I believe, even so I believe, and from my experience with them mostly, but also from talking to myself out of here, you can talk to yourself out of here, and other races that are outside of here and can kind of look down in or come here and see what's going on. They say the Fae, the Sasquatch, the Dogmen, a lot of these cryptids, there's many more. We just act like there's 2 or 3, but there's thousands of varieties. They are actually in the 3D. Here's the kicker. And this leads credence to your theory about the distraction and the, hiding type thing too, is you have to resonate on their frequency to see them. So they're in the 3D, but they're higher frequency. So you have to be 4D or 5D to see them in the fur, in the flesh, whatever you want to say. So if you meet someone that's seen them in the fur, automatically, like you, I believe, could. Maybe you haven't, but you could. you're the ones that would get the pictures or find them or actually have the evidence, because most of the people looking for Sasquatch or Dogman, not all, but most of them are very 3D people. They're never going to find, because they don't understand it's a density thing. It's not a, oh, look, you're under the rock, come out, I found you, So yeah, so 5D is more about the collective. There's more groups, there's more cohesiveness, there's more one mind, but it's nothing like upper dimensions where there's nothing even physical in some of the upper dimensions. And you know this because you've probably gone there at various times and you probably have the memory. There's just space, there's just light, there's just sound, there's not planets, there's not galaxies. But I believe as consciousness, we want to experience, and you kind of referred to this too, the physicality. We actually want to experience pain, not a popular theory. We want to experience the contrast. Imagine being an eternal, all-powerful spirit that can do anything, have anything, create anything. You might get bored. You might want a little physicality. You might want some sex. You might want some drama. You might want some relationship, And then we get down here, we're like, what was I thinking? Let's get back out of here. But I think we've played hundreds of games, and we'll probably sign up for games like this again. I think most of us that are spirited, because there's a lot of clones and a lot of simulations and a lot of robots here and a lot of other races, but most of us that are, spirited, I think we signed up to come here.
Oh yeah, I think we signed up to definitely come here. I'm wondering if I've got my D's mixed up. Now here's one set of dimensional stuff where you go through all your lives basically in a physical body, and you get to a certain point, and I was told is around the 6th dimension, where when you do come back, you're light. So it's light beings that move on. And then there's the 3D, 4D, 5D, which is the progression of Earth and its interaction with itself. So the third D it's the me, everything is about me and growing and building and nesting. And then the 5th D I was told it was more about we, and
yes,
the doors were open and loving each other and bringing everything in.
I do think we're, well, I don't know if you're going to ask me this or not, but actually, and I don't know how you are at timelines. I'm pretty good at timelines, but in April of 2020, which is really when the got all kicked up, at least in America, it really started. It's where we started seeing them bring in this script of what's going on or lingering on now. We all know what I'm talking about, but that's actually when we went on a pretty solid began. We stepped up into a higher frequency, the whole entire collective planet, more into a 4D frequency. So we've been on a more positive, even though there's these sub-timelines, there's like 140, 180 sub-timelines with details running. We stepped up back then, which is why I believe the cabal and the negative ET races came in and said, no, we're going to slow this down. We're not going to let you go up. I mean, it'd be nice just to walk from 3.5 to 4 as a collective, but they're not going to let us do it. They're throwing us a lot of, keeping us down. They're not letting us come up into that more. I look at it as, I'm not a Bible person anymore, but I look at it more as like the 1,000-year reign of Christ, like kind of that peaceful lion laying down with the lamb. And, everybody has something. Maybe we're not all equal like socialism, but everybody's fed. Everybody has access to healthcare. Everybody has a chance to do a job that expresses, something, a core of who they are, art, music, that kind of thing. I honestly think we're on that timeline. I know it's not popular, but I've seen signs. I've seen signs that it's coming. I mean, England's given up the passports. Belgium's given up the passports. Some of these countries, England's a big world leader. It really is.
Given up what passport?
Like you have to have a passport to shop. You have to have a passport to work. You have to be, I don't know what we're allowed to say, so I don't want to ruin your thing,
No, sorry. I'm because I have a passport to travel from one country to another. Is that what you're talking about?
No, no, I'm talking about the C passport.
The COVID
just,
passport?
Yeah, England just said, okay, we're done with this game. We're done. We're done. We're not pushing this agenda anymore. So a lot of the countries are just dropping the script, probably because they're being forced to. So I think we're going to see a wrap up by January, February. I think it's going to be, except in Australia, which is going to take them a longer time to, the real, and you guys, I don't know what's going on with you guys. I don't know where you guys
we
are
have,
at.
if I wanted to go to a let's say I can go to the store and buy food. I can clothe my children. I could do all that stuff. But if I wanted to go do a frilly life choice, like go to the nightclub, I would need to be vaccinated.
So they're restricting your pleasure, kind of your fun.
I could have pleasure at home or with my friends, having a barbecue or something. But for like sports and things that aren't really necessary for human existence during a pandemic, that's restricted. Okay. And we've got, was it like a couple of months ago, we had about 75% of the population or more, 80% vaccinated. And that was
really
first shot.
Still?
And I think we're good. We should be up to closer to 90 in the next month or so.
My prediction is even for you guys, I think, I don't know what you think. I think beginning of the year, early spring, I know they're coming in with the next script, which I'm hoping they won't do. I'm hoping they're not going to do that stupid scare script that they've got lined up right behind this. I'm hoping they're not going to do that because that's going to...
We'll see. You got to remember, you guys are 2% of the population of the planet, but are the loudest. Like... media-wise. So when I listen to the news, I listen to my news from here and news and the BBC from England. And if I want to see some real bizarre news, I'll go ABC, which is the Australian Broadcasting Corporation. But I was told a couple of years ago, we're going to lose a lot of people. And we're losing people from the United States, China, India, and Australia.
I would agree.
Those are the four places.
I would agree with that as well.
It's a culling of the herd, and it's the lower vibration me people who aren't open to others.
I say it's the clones that are unspirited or have lost their spirit. People say you can't lose your spirit. I see it all the time, and my daughter is really great. I'm good at it, but my daughter is really good. She can see and map souls in pictures, and she can tell when someone's spirit's dying out or coming up or completely empty. So
if they're here's a question for you. If they're completely empty, can a dead person who hasn't crossed over step in?
Oh, and it happens all the time. We're seeing that so much. It's so exciting you said that. I've actually been seeing an increase in that because I think there's less spirited people. I'm not sure. But we're seeing a huge amount of, I call them human discarnates, walking in, not just to empty, but also into spirited. Even higher frequency spirit isn't too odd. They like a taste of the good stuff too. So, I mean,
yeah,
I just remove them. I don't let them stay, but
yeah, it's irritating. But you think our guides and angels would step in and start kicking them out too? But I guess
I find most of them are too, the ones that I've had to pull out of my kids and my like son-in-law and stuff. They're kind of nebulous, neutral. They're annoying, but not like harmful. It's not like a serial killer. They're like I had to pull out a 3-year-old little boy, harmless, and I pulled out a 40-year-old woman who loved to clean. So he was up all night folding laundry, and my daughter almost didn't let me pull her out of him because he all of a sudden turned into this cleaning machine. She just didn't she was creeped out because he was drinking all his drinks. He was holding them like they were sippy cups, like a 3-year-old. And she's like, get that thing out of him. So, but I took both of them. They both left, but it was funny. Yeah, but we're seeing that a lot. And he still has a spirit. His spirit's kind of on the downward side, but he's spirited. So we're even seeing them in spirited people. Of course, it's easier to get in someone that's not awake and conscious and gifted and skilled and higher vibrational. You know that, but
we get people, or I've been around people who have shouldn't say I've been around them because they repulse me, but it's like it's having that term, the monkey on your back. That thing that comes out of your back and has the face of a cat with red eyes. And it's literally intercepting source energy that you're supposed to be getting. And it keeps you in addiction or illness or whatever. And it just feeds off you. And yeah, you can get the person into rehab or recovery, get them off the drug. But unless you get somebody to remove that elemental being or demon or whatever you call it.
A whole another category. Absolutely. We see, and that's what when I say entities, I mean that the nebulous ones, but there's also, and I show a lot of, I'm going to make a new video soon and I'll put up a new example. There was a woman on Twitter and she was talking about energetic work for facelifts. She was just yapping. And because I can feel frequencies like you can, I don't necessarily see it. I just feel it. So I know to take a picture. I'm like, oh, there's something weird in her mouth. And I took her picture. I blew up her mouth and she has little furry entities crawling around her mouth. Isn't that crazy?
Well, here's a weird thing. One night, a few months back, and I build a good bubble, and my location here is about as clean can be because we have 4 elemental beings that came up and helped clear a whole bunch of stuff out. A shaman and a psychic came in and cleared 13 entities. Well, no, 9 entities. Because 4 of them were actually the beings from the land here that exist here. So, so it's always been clean. Other than Annie, who's a little like 8 to 10-year-old girl that wanders around the place, but we let her stay and she doesn't want to leave, so it's fine. But I had this. I woke up and you know how you get the in between sleep and awake, and I wasn't really dreaming or anything, but I got growled, and I felt this imposing black mass on top of me.
Wow!
So I just kind of took a deep breath and I went, Michael, which Archangel Michael, use him for everything.
Oh, you would call it. Okay, got it. Yeah.
And I went, Michael, and all of a sudden, poof, it goes. And I got a hold of my friend Skeeter, who helps me clear places. And I said, okay, so what the heck was this? And she said, it was really dark. And I said, well, what the heck was it doing here? Because I build the bubble saying the only thing allowed in here are those who come from my highest purpose and my guides, my angels, blah, blah, blah. And she said, it was there for your highest purpose. And I said, what was my highest purpose? And she said, you had a bunch of little attachments. Your angels let this thing in to feed off all these other things that were coming off of you.
That's awesome. I love that. There you go.
And I said, well, that's kind of creepy. I don't want. But she said, yeah, they weren't going to let it hurt you. And it had an understanding that it was only allowed in for that one purpose. And that was to feed off these things.
That's awesome. I've never heard that. That's awesome. But that's what we see more damage from an accumulation of these nebulous little, it's kind of like saying, you know, how do you want to die? Do you just want to go? Or do you want to like death by 1,000 cuts? These little tiny things are like death by 1,000 cuts, like they're draining you. You're wondering why you can't get through a day and you feel horrible at night. You don't have energy to do this. I mean, whenever I go out in public, regardless of any kind of protection or my belief system or anything, I get jumped by these things. Like, you can touch a counter and they just crawl up your arm onto you, or when you hand the money to the cashier or your card. I mean, I find water is very effective. So most of them, if you come home fairly quickly and they don't get a real crawly hold, they don't crawl in your mouth, up your nose, whatever, most of them will leave in the shower. Like, they don't like water, these little tiny furry.
In the shower, the movement of water is energy.
There you go.
So you can, I used to tell people who are higher vibration, they'd say, well, who is this person you see beside me? I said, I can't really tell, but why don't you ask her, next time you're having a shower, ask what her name is. And you'll actually either hear it or it'll come into your head really quick. And if you do hear it and you pee yourself, at least you're in the shower. Because it'll sound like you're standing right beside you. It's just kind of freaky.
I love it.
But it's the shower that does it. It's the movement of water around you creates energy. So yeah, that would clean negative energy or negative things off.
That's great.
But I'll do the same thing. I'll build a bubble usually when I sleep. That way you don't get the whole sleep paralysis thing going on anymore. But or I'll do it if I'm in a place. Sometimes I'm in a location and it could be a house that's built like 5 years ago. And I'll walk out and go, in my mind, I say, you're not allowed to come home with me. You can stay here.
Yeah, that's right. I need to start doing that.
It's like coming out of a haunted house. You know, you were saying earlier that I was around a lot of negative energies.
Yeah,
I was in I did a few paranormal investigations, quite a few in a residential school. These were places where the First Nations, the Aboriginal people here, were taken away from their families, put in this location, sexually abused. Some were murdered, and their ghosts, their spirits, their ghosts were there. There was a priest who hadn't crossed over who was still there, and he had a negative energy with him, like hovering over him. And we were trying to get the kids to cross over, and the priest stepped in and said, basically, if you try to leave, I'll tell God what you did. Well, they didn't do anything wrong other than they were victims of sexual assault. So, but they're kids. They had a good elder spirit who had crossed and come back, and a good nun who had crossed and come back to protect them in the location. There was a real crappy nun who hadn't crossed that was there, and this priest, and a negative thing that you'd almost want to call, well, it was demonic, whatever it was, and it was with him and keeping him. It was a horrible place. So yeah, I've been around and we had interaction with the negative crap. And there was another house I had an interaction with a real negative energy that actually put a kid who lived in this bedroom, it was his bedroom, it put the kid into a psych ward. It tormented the kid. And we had a back and forth conversation through a listening device with this thing. And it's like, yeah, if you don't get out of here on your own, we're going to get you. And the guy said, yeah, go ahead, try. And I went, okay, called our bluff. I think it's time to go. And I'm we're downstairs picking up all our camera gear, leaving. And I had my, one of the video cameras was on and I didn't notice it. So I was reviewing the tape after. And when we were picking stuff up, very clearly on the tape, he says, get out, get the F out. It was like, holy crap. Wow. Yeah, he was cranky. And then the people who own the house, they moved to Vegas and sold the house. And I've often wondered what the new owners think of the place, if they're even there. I always wondered that
too. My old house had a lot of portals, and I just left it like that because I didn't necessarily like the people that moved in. But I always wonder, like, what they're experiencing, what's going on still there. It's interesting.
Yeah, it's interesting. But those are the real negative things. And of course, around those negative things are usually a darker energy.
Yes, absolutely. Of course. Yeah.
Really keeping them from crossing. It's fascinating. All that stuff. All that stuff is fascinating. We didn't get into soul regression and past life regression and midlife regression. And we've actually talked for a lot longer than usual. We've gone to like 2 hours, I think, instead of my hour and a half. But I really appreciate you dropping by. And again, I'm going to get people, please go over to the website, which is in this other book that I have here. This is the one I put all my notes in, so I know what we talked about later. It is The Secret to Everything, secrettoeverything.com. This is Dr. Kimberly McGeorge. And we didn't talk about the doctor part. You're a
naturopathic doctor. I practice clinically for a number of years in Columbus, Ohio. And but now I do more fun things.
More fun things. Yeah, you do the woo-woo stuff, which is cool.
Yeah,
and
I love
Secret to Everything is also YouTube. Please go to the YouTube and subscribe if you can. And if you're on if you're a YouTuber, that would be cool. And also subscribe to me. What the heck? But please go to their YouTube, Secret to Everything. Twitter is your other company?
It's Serene Wellness. It's just old. It's just from when I had a natural health practice. It's Serene Wellness. I never changed it. So that's what it is. Okay, Serene Wellness. And Facebook is both Kimberly McGeorge is your personal one, and then Secret to Everything is your company one. Yeah. And for the app, if you guys are interested in that app, just go over to the App Store. No, hold on. Go to the website, right? No, go to the website and there's a contact box. Just type in there. It'll get to my support team and they'll take care of you. Or you can write support directly, support@kimberlymcgeorge.com, which feeds into secrettoeverything.com. So it doesn't matter. Goes into the ether. Somehow it goes to your house and pops up in your daughter's computer, which is your support team. That's right. And there you go. That's right. Yeah. I wish I had my kids would pay attention and help me. Rat.
But again, thanks very much for dropping by. And
Thank you.
we're going to have to come back and chat again.
That'd be great. I'd love to.
Yeah, because there's way more stuff I want to talk about, from paranormal investigations to whatever you did with the police and helping them off and on.
Yeah, I forgot to talk about
the medical
that
stuff and your fancy app and energy healing, which is one of the main reasons I wanted you on anyway. But that was such a long time ago, almost 3 years when I first started thinking about it. But yeah, it's very, very cool. I love that you can do remote viewing, and I love that you also clear people clear stuff out of houses remotely too, which is cool.
Yeah,
love that.
Animals, homes, people like you.
Excellent. Thanks again. Thanks, Kimberly.
Guys, take care.
That's it. Let's roll. Hey, let's be careful out.
I see dead people.